Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens. I am Jamie Widener, your one of your hosts, along with Chad Thomas, my co-host and king of all things cool that look like that cool stuff you saw on the way in. Chad, how's it going? What's going on with you?
It's going. Things are busy. It was a high school show week, so you
Yeah,
know,
it sure
last week was
wasn't
really
it?
busy. Kids did a great job at the show,
They
but
did.
but yeah, it's been
Yeah,
it's it's been a recovery week, that's for sure. So
this last couple of days have been so, and I think everybody knows I was away last week in Las Vegas. I had had quite the interesting travel home. A flight to Dallas got delayed, and then that was my connection to back here to Harrisburg, PA, or our area, and the flight got delayed, and then it got delayed again, and then I missed a connection. Got rerouted into a flight in the morning. Said nope, I got to get home. I got stuff to do because there was a play to go to, right?
that's great.
So I ended up going to Charlotte to Baltimore, and then not getting home until 2 something in the morning. So a long day. The usual stuff for those who are professional travelers, do it regularly. This stuff happens all the time. And actually, my suitcase got more travel time in than I did. It didn't get here till Saturday night while we were at the play. So here we are, and back into it again in a whole new week. So luckily, it's a short week for Thanksgiving, and we'll
hmm
hopefully I'll get some R&R and some downtime.
And
Uh,
when you come back to work after travel, everything's all ready to go, right, Jamie?
oh my gosh, yeah, of course it is. Everybody takes care of it just like it's their project. Um, I don't want to get into what we do professionally, but I manage a product line for my company, and I had a guy covering me who really, and I love this kid, and he's fantastic. There's these little things here and there that I'm picking up on. So, but outstanding job. He really covered it and nailed most of it, 99.5%. So. But that number keeps shrinking every little bit. Find someone new. So,
Uh-huh.
um, you know, hey, first world problems. You have a job to go to and the good stuff. So
That's right.
it was fun. So anyway, that's not why we're here, right? Right.
Right.
There's this thing called the Nazca Lines,
Okay.
and I think I've alluded to this before I even said it out loud. My time as a young adult was college was to be an archaeologist. It was my intention, my dream, my desire, and my specific area of expertise would have been pre-Columbian South and Central America, and this obviously is Peru, as you can see by the map, and the Nazca is a city or a town in southwestern Peru that is named after a population, a culture, a civilization that was in the area back in the day. And I'll get into some of that detail in a minute. I'm just going to set this up a little bit. It's about 300 miles south of Lima and about 250 miles west of Cusco. Um, and one of my favorite places to stay in the whole wide world, not too far from Lake Titicaca. So, yeah, I'm still 7. Um, the most interesting thing here is that the Nazca lines are geoglyphs, or large line drawings that are on the ground. So these are not monolithical things that are vertical, and you can see for miles and miles, at the ground level from any distance you might be. These are um, flat items, and they depict monkeys, as you see here, humans, many birds, flowers, trees. There's even a killer whale in there, as well as various geometric shapes such as triangles, spirals, and trapezoids. So things that didn't exist in this area, trapezoids and triangles and things as far as known geometric shapes are present. Um, Again, it's southwestern Peru. The area is known as Pampa Colorada, translates loosely to colored plain because it's a reddish hue on the ground level. And then again, near the city of Nazca. The geoglyphs were discovered in the early 1920s, but not fully understood until airplanes were available in this area in the 1930s. So people were aware they were there. They were able to walk them, if you will, at the ground level, but really couldn't get the scope because they weren't seeing them from the elevated view as we are in these slides. The Nazca a total of 190 square miles. So this is a massive area that these glyphs are in. And The scale of them is staggering in some cases. The lines are named after the Nazca people who populated the area from approximately 200 BC until 600 AD. Some of the glyphs are older, which are likely part of the Paracas culture that predated Nazca from 400 BC to 200 BC. So a short a short window in the space of time, but a very active culture in the things that they created and left behind for others. The Nazca culture was made up of many chiefdoms with regional centers of power. They worship multiple natural-based deities, some of which are depicted in the lines themselves, the monkey, flowers, things like that. And their cultural advancements include creating pottery and dyeing woven textiles. So, not an overly advanced society as you would have expected, perhaps from what you would have found in Europe and other places, but very advanced for the era that they're in and the contact that they have. The lines themselves were created by making depressions or shallow incisions in the desert floor and removing pebbles and leaving different colored dirt exposed. So the surface layer is a highly oxidated soil, which is reddish in color, mentioned a moment ago. So it has almost like a rust color hue. They used rudimentary hand tools to remove the surface layer and exposing the soil beneath, which is a whitish color, thus creating lines. Kind of like, think about a blacktop road. You get a freshly paved road, and those of us who went to the Hinsdale House 2 years ago, the first trip, remember the highway in Western New York was freshly paved and there were no lines, which in the daylight as we were approaching wasn't a big deal. But we were driving away that night, or at least I was driving away that night in the fog, the dense fog. It was a problem because there were no lines yet. But as soon as you put down lines, you obviously have boundaries and you have borders, and then things make sense. The lines actually here are drawn, and I'm going to say that because they're not paint. No one went out there with a can of spray paint and put these down. But they were drawn using rope tied between boulders to provide straight lines. The Y curving, as you see in these pictures here, were created with the rope using curved rope. And the interesting thing is the geometric shapes are so clearly aligned that it's amazing to see how these were done with such detail and such consistency. That it's quite amazing that these were done in a very rudimentary sense with tools and technique. Because of their significant size, most of the lines are not clearly or entirely visible from ground level. The largest lines are over 370 meters long, or 400 yards, so 4 football fields, which is massive, incredibly big entities. Many believe the lines were created for astronomical purposes, and we'll get into that in a minute. Yeah, maybe. But the Nazca, this is one of the most important parts. The Nazca site was added to the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage List in 1994. It's called UNESCO. And what this does is allows the protection and preservation of the lines, like a national park here in the U.S., but on a global scale. So this is a big deal that these lines are being preserved and protected. The lines have been naturally preserved by the dry climate as well. So, this is a very arid area. It's desert-esque. There's some rainfall, of course, and there are natural winds, flat, open spaces. So the wind is helping to blow debris out of the lines as they are kind of recessed into the ground. And also, this area only sees about 12.5 inches of rain annually. We got here in South Central Pennsylvania somewhere between 1/2 and 3/4 inches just today alone. So, on the scale of a year, you're talking about an inch of rain a month. That's really not much. So it's helping to keep these from being eroded by moisture and water and so forth. Originally, these are believed to have been created for astronomical purposes, as I mentioned. Other theories are that the geometric lines could indicate water flow or irrigation schemes. It would be part of rituals to summon water. Again, natural deities, the sky would have been a god to them, and the rain. And then the spiders, birds, and plants may be fertility symbols as well. So everything ties into something that's represented for a reason. Another theory is that the Nazca lines were used as ancient forms of communication In the Nazca Desert, the linear types were used to travel from one valley to another, while the relief types that depict animals, birds, and figures and so forth tend to be drawn on slopes alongside ancient pathways and would be markers for locations and or even the territorial boundaries of the various chiefdoms that were present in the area. The lines are a significant boon to the region, with thousands and thousands of tourists coming every year to view them. The catch is you can no longer walk out onto the plains and the hillsides just to view them in person. There is a observation tower that's pretty high up on one of the hilltops. You can see it a fairly good view. And of course, you can always charter a plane out of Nazca itself, charter a small Piper Cub or something, and fly over the lines. Much like people do with the Grand Canyon, they can get a helicopter ride or even a small plane ride, to really get the scale and scope of the canyon. Same thing here. You would be up and above and, seeing the spectrum from the sky to get a full view. Move up a little bit on the slides, please. So there's some key people that were involved in this process. Again, we're talking about the Nazca being in the area up until about 400 AD. But the first, I'll say white people, Europeans to come to the area happened in 1553. A fellow named Pedro Cieza de Leon noted in his book the trail these as trail markers, not realizing how big they really are, and looking at some of the smaller lines. He thought it was something of significance and noted it, so that's the first known notation. A few years later, in 1569, Luis Monzon reported having seen ancient ruins in Peru, and including the remains of roads, which he thought the lines were markers again for lanes of roads. Again, not being able to see the spectrum from the elevated view. It took until 1927 for an archaeologist named Toribio Mejia Ezepe. He spotted them while he was hiking through the foothills. He discussed them at a conference in Lima in 1939, which was the first known notation of them officially to the world outside of the locals who knew they were there. Jumping forward a few more years, but not far later, this drew the attention of an American named Paul Cossack. He's an historian from the Long Island University in New York, and he is credited as the first scholar to study the lines in depth. While in Peru from 1940 to 1941, he was studying them as ancient irrigation systems. He had an opportunity to fly over the lines and realize that there was one the shape of a bird, and we're like, we're onto something here. There's something much more than that. Just began the deeper exploration. He had with him probably the most significant person in this process, as far as the study, preservation, and engagement of understanding the lines. A German woman named Maria Reich, who from the 1940s, coming there with Mr. Cossack until her death in 1998, was present in Nazca, in the lines. She was a mathematician, an archaeologist, and a technical translator. She first saw the lines in 1941, as I mentioned, and she is officially known as the Lady of the Lines. She made a documentary. She did preservation work. She did public dissemination, and it became her life's work. When she passed in 1998, the home that she lived in, which was a mud hut on one of the hillsides, was turned into a museum called Museo Maria Reich. And the airport in Nazca has been named in her honor, the Maria Reich Newman Airport, as her married name was. So, it's really interesting. Somebody who is not a local, someone who's not even Peruvian, found passion here. And, and again, in the spectrum, all these hundreds of square miles, there was so much to see and do that she made it her life's work to be there. And that's kind of when you find these kind of uniquenesses, the allure of these places, the draw that they have. Some say it's natural, just energy and power in the area. Some might say it's more than that. It's maybe where the paranormal lens turns to. So, the next slide, please.
Okay. So
there are some theories here, right? And this is where we get a little off pace from traditional archaeology, anthropology, the study of cultures, creation of how these things were done. How did they really get there? Well, we're going to go off the path a little bit. Okay. The first one is what they were made by ancient aliens. Okay. You have to go there, right? Because
Right.
look at this slide is a pictorial of many of the bigger ones that are there, and you can certainly see in the middle top row, it looks like a dude's waving.
Hmm.
He's called the astronaut, and with that, that is a humanoid shape. Why he's on a hillside with his arm up waving, is it a landing pad kind of thing? Um, there are any others that are not shown here, but are humanoid in appearance, as we saw in some of the previous slides, potentially depicting otherworldly visitors who came to the area that the Nazca and the Paracas were trying to depict, and hopefully being as a welcome sign for them to come back.
Right.
The lines could have been used as landing strips or guideposts for alien ships. They're obviously very large. 400 yards long is a massive size thing. It's obviously very visible. And these lines are visible via Google Earth. So you certainly, if you jump in and Google Nazca in Peru, Nazca Lines, you'll find these being visible from space. So the consideration is they could be landing pads. This is kind of interesting. The other thought is they were created to appease their deities or provide tribute to them as their form that they see them as. They use ceremonial mounds as places of worship. That's known. That's part of the archaeology and anthropology of this area. But they did not have places with walls to depict things like we do. Like if you think about a deity for us, God, Allah, so forth, you're looking at churches. Those churches, we put in traditional symbols, crosses, things like that, friezes, stained glass, the things that we do as tribute. They didn't have those things. So laying them out on the ground would have been their canvases, their walls that they would have used. And this explains why they're facing upward, very easily, because they didn't have anything to put them vertically. There are no walls anywhere. Except for like small huts and so forth that they lived in with shelter. And lastly, here on the theories, if you will, the lines have marked a place for pilgrimage for the Nazca as they ventured further away from the area to find more hospitable environments to live in. As the area is very arid, there's not much water, as in 12 inches of rain a year. They didn't have the technology and advancement to dig wells, at least not very far. So if they weren't able to find water, they would have had to go further away from the area to survive and sustain. So having this as these markers in place allowed them to have a place to come back to. And again, that goes back to the territorial thing too.
Right.
It might have been the boundaries for them.
So, Jamie, were the Nazca nomadic then?
It's not known to be, no, and that's interesting, right? So but again, being nomadic is kind of on the move on the regular basis,
right?
Or at least in a seasonal sense, like birds, flying south for the winter, north for the summers. They would likely travel where the environment was hospitable to them, and southern Peru does get cold, because it's in the sense of the hemispheres, they're going to have their spring, summer, fall, winter months.
Right.
Likely would have moved to the northern ends of their region to avoid some of the cold weather. So again, just giving them a marker for where their home was when they came back again.
Okay.
So it's a lot of stuff, right? And some of it's fantastical, perhaps. Like these are fantastical things. They're massive, geoglyphs. They were planned. There's strategy in them and why they were there. The rationale and reason is lost to antiquity. Unfortunately, we're talking, nearly 2,000 years ago, or over 2,000 years ago in some cases when they were created. So the peoples who did this aren't here with us anymore. The ancestors and the hereditary lines are broken. So we're never really going to know unless we find something. The really curious piece of this too is since I'll get to a wrap up here. So let's go to the next slide. This is kind of an overview map to get a feel for the area. So while I want to believe aliens visited the Paracas and the Nazca, the most likely explanation of this is that the lines were used to channel or retain the limited amount of rainfall and water resources they had each year, right? So, it makes sense to be that. The lines are troughs essentially, so they would retain water. It's interesting to me this, and this is a very telling thing because we're not done studying this area. We're not done discovering things. In the last 3 years, there's been an additional 155 line segments that have been discovered using new technology like ground penetrating radar, LiDAR, aerial technologies as well, leaving the opportunity for even more to be found well within the realm of possibility. And like anything else, this is a work in progress. So more things, the more we find, the more we can understand. And I'm really happy. It helps me feel good about this. That they're going. This is an ongoing project, even though the people who started this, Maria and Paul, their work continues even though it's done by other people, and that is the best part of science in all of this. So that's what we do. We continue. So I'd like to think in the next couple of years we'll find even more. Hopefully we'll find some things that make sense, why these were created in the first place. But I guess I'll stop there. Chad, what do you think? What do you have you heard of these before? First of all,
I have. Yes, I mean, I think I shouldn't say I think everybody's heard of them, but yeah, I've heard of them a little bit. I didn't know much about them. It's the question was always, how did people who lived in the desert know what a whale was, and
right?
how did
Yep.
people who lived in the desert know what a monkey was or a parrot? Because these are things that are out of their realm, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, looking at where Nazca is, it's not far from the Pacific Ocean. So knowing that they did have to move to more hospitable weather, maybe that's an explanation as to where they saw a whale, and it was something that they wanted to document. And like you said, like they didn't have houses, they didn't have permanent structures, so the only way to document would be in the earth, and making it small wouldn't be very good anyway. Like the detail wouldn't be there. I guess my question goes to, did they have some sort of thing that we haven't discovered that got them up high enough to see?
Yeah. Right. And
Where they were going?
that's
I guess
the
that's a big question.
that's the concept, right? Of why, and is this therefore the intent or an environment of something otherworldly, to help them, and this is, we're discovering more and more things all over the world, and technologies are helping us. We're uncovering areas in jungles because of LiDAR and other radar technologies that are buried under tons and tons of natural vegetation, the overgrowth that have happened. But cities are popping up out of the jungles all over the world now too. The idea here, with and even how did the pyramids get built? All that stuff. Is there intervention happening? At some point or another. I can't take it away. And I'm a paranormal investigator. That's what we're here for. That's why we're here. This isn't exactly as paranormal as some of the other things we're going to talk about coming up, but it is something where there is the distinct possibility that something else is here with this for the creation, and the intent and design for why. And maybe they were, maybe their deity is really something otherworldly, and that's what why they're facing up, because those things would come down and make contact with them. I can't discredit that, again, because there's no documented history. There's really no good oral history. The pass down of information, it just doesn't exist here. So there's not even a good urban legend, unfortunately. So
I mean,
history.
Are there any of these people, the civilization, that exist anymore, or has it all been assimilated?
Assimilation over and over, has really been the play here. The area being as inhospitable as it is, people were moving away, and as they moved away, they matriculated into other parts of cultures, and obviously, they reproduced in that culture, and then the bloodline gets divided and divided and divided. So,
right.
If you were to hike up into the Andes, you will still find direct descendants of the Inca. In pockets at least, because there are so many remote locations still. But even there, with integration with other peoples, the lines are passing out of existence. So, but they're still out there. And I can't say there aren't still Nazca or Paracas out there,
Right.
from original, but I would be hard pressed to say they are uh, deep connections anymore
Right.
because of intermarrying and so forth.
And even if they were, the chance that the oral history has been handed down,
Well, it's whispered down the lane.
Right.
I don't really discredit anything that's presented, but the same way, we're talking 2,000 years of hand down history. It's the story's going to change. We can't do that in a 5-minute whisper down the lane session in a room, with as it goes with 5 people. So,
right.
Imagine a couple hundred years. So, there's a lot of cool things here. I would love to get down and see all of this, and really, be in the moment with this space, because it's massive.
Right.
It's not just a drive over and pop your head over the rim of the canyon kind of thing. There it is. As I was flying to the Las Vegas last week, we flew over the Grand Canyon, and of course everybody's like, "Ooh, and rightfully so. It's massive and it's really cool, and it's a national treasure for us to have." But even from the air, that view just doesn't quantify how big it really is. You have to be on the ground. You have to stand in front of it at the lip, where the ridge is, and just really absorb how big it really is.
Right.
Same thing here. These pictures are great. But they're small scale, and the scope of them is just not enough to massively cover the area in the full spectrum that it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what was that? Well, airplanes, yes, and back in the 1930s, we're talking about propeller planes, big chunky planes, but obviously have windows. Now we can certainly do a whole lot better with technology. The advancements we've had in aircraft, but it is still just that simple. You have to be up in the air at an elevation to really soak the scope of this.
Yeah, sorry, they definitely wouldn't have had anything airtight, airplane wise, even glider wise.
Yeah, in the era of the Nazca, no, absolutely not. Well, I mean, unless something, maybe a hot air balloon somehow, maybe. I mean, that's not another realm of possibility, I guess. But that's, if I remember this correctly, in the invention of the technology was Europe, and it was in the 1600s. So this would have been 1,000 years before, without the advancements of the societies of Europe that they had at the time in southwestern Peru.
Right.
So this is well pre-Columbian times. Mm-hmm. This is a couple hundred years, 800 years before Columbus even discovered what would be America to the north,
right,
in the Caribbean area. So it took a long time for Europeans to get there. And even then, the guys who came through on that initial trip that started documenting would have been missionaries, or most likely, or they could have technically been conquistadors too. So. Probably not the most welcomed individuals into the cultures at the time. Maybe. And here's where we go paranormal, right? And what is paranormal. I don't want to say this, Chad. I think we covered this maybe episode 1, so it's been 30 episodes ago, right?
Right.
Paranormal isn't just ghosts and things that go bump in the night. That's kind of what we've been conditioned because of television and the available shows and so forth. But there are things that are outside the normal. If you take away all the things that are normal, that could be what's left is paranormal. It's the unnormal.
Right.
So this is unnormal stuff, and that's why I wanted to present it in this episode. And I thought it was a cool topic as well.
Right.
But it's. Are there ghosts there? Sure, possibly. The remnants of the people and their culture and so forth. I hope so. That would be fun just to spend some time, if you could spend time on the ground, level. There has to be some remnants of the civilization that they were, the huts and so forth they lived in. Still have to have some of that has to exist. So it might be an opportunity, but it's just magical powers, perhaps.
Yeah. I brought this slide back up because I'm just looking at this, the symmetry, Like it is. The symmetry,
Well played, Jim. Well played.
the symmetry on this is just too perfect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
how like it just doesn't make sense to me that they didn't have some sort of view or help or something on this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard for me to do that. Well, it's the same way that when you look at the pyramids, they are so perfect down to millimeters. With the blocks as they're assembled, and how that could happen with ropes and pulleys, for the
Right.
massive size of these stones that they were placing. Here, I mean, these are very straight, perfect lines. In this case, curved, of course, because it's
Right, but perfect curved lines.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I'm not smart enough to do the math on this. I'll admit that every day. But like there really had to be some geometry basically involved in this,
Right.
and to talk about 208 BC to 600 AD. In the area they're in, there was not contact with any of this stuff in advance,
Right.
to give them that extra tool.
And I mean, this is looking at this in your other slide, this is 80 meters across.
Yeah, it's
so
huge.
that's huge. So yeah, it blows my mind. It's definitely not normal.
Yeah. The ones I find interesting are the ones on the hillside, because a lot of those are humanoid shapes and animal shapes. It almost looks like they're watching, because they're elevated in angle. They're watching what's below them, as an oversight. And I'm wondering, obviously my thought process here, like it almost looks like a gallery. They're seeing what's going on below. So is that a possibility?
It sort of reminds me of those stickers, the stick figures on the back windows of the car.
The minivan window. That's it. They just moved the whole mountain away.
But it is interesting that this is at the base of what looks like a road. I mean, the picture's a little
road now. Yeah, right. It could have been a pathway at the time.
But yeah, it is definitely the amount of work that went into this. Again, it comes back to what the Egyptians did. Like the amount of work to make this happen is just amazing.
Sure. And I don't want to just, we're talking about the Egyptians with pyramids, but pyramids were made around the world, right?
Sure.
And cities were made around the world, and in South and Central America, in pre-Columbian times, there were major cities established by Incas, Mayas, Aztecs, etc., many other subcultures, that were thriving with thousands and thousands of people long before, Europeans came and, did a lot more damage than good,
right?
To the cultures and the societies, and in the quest for gold and salvation, that they were bringing, and that so it doesn't surprise me, that this kind of stuff exists. It just amazes me that it's survived all of this time. It's persevered, and obviously the environment helps. The protections that is provided by UNESCO help. It's not, and there's no treasure here, right? It's not made of gold, or it's not shiny. So no one wanted to destroy it or take it away because of that. But it's still it's amazing, that this part of the world was thriving in a time when thriving for us as we perceive it now was Europe at the time that it was.
Yeah. Another one thing that with this image, it doesn't really fit the irrigation thought.
Right. Agreed.
Because I mean, it's not just lines, it's actually artwork there. Whether the second image from the left there, it looks like some sort of body or so it's definitely artwork. It's just not something to collect water, unless it was collecting a ton of water.
Right. It could just be a down trough drain kind of idea. And also too, the entity, whatever it is to the far left, has two heads, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that. So not in character with the other three. Quite interesting. and the one to the second to the right looks like it's holding a head, which actually, and I didn't want to get into the gruesomeness of this, but the Nazca did believe when their dead passed that they removed their heads and used them as a tribute to their gods as well. So it's kind of gross, but bodies were found, all the bodies that were found were headless. And then the heads were found, not maybe the exact heads were found elsewhere as a kind of ceremonial area and set up that way. So obviously a different culture and a different base of religion than what we're familiar with or we would expect.
Right, but it actually, it sort of makes sense if you think about it. If they understood anything about the brain being where the consciousness was possibly centered,
okay,
that would be the part that you would want to preserve or worship. The rest was not, So there's some definitely interesting thoughts possible there.
Sure.
So, and Amanda's saying, the tribal boundaries make sense. I sort of agree with that.
Yeah, and too, Chad, when you take off the head, there's no zombies. So
this is true. You don't have to worry about it.
Maybe they knew something we didn't all that way back. We're still making movies about that stuff.
Yep.
Well, that's what I have. And I appreciate the indulgence of this one. Again, a little off the path of our normal stuff, not quite as spooky as perhaps it would normally be, but still, I think it's the paranormal thing. I really do. It's not normal, and it's quite it's an objective kind of perspective, I guess. But I appreciate the time, and thanks everybody for indulging me as well.
Yeah. So let's see. What do you want to talk about? What's coming up?
We got stuff coming up. What?
We do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not it.
Hey, there it is.
Jamie, we have 2 investigations left this year. It's hard to believe that's it.
It's impossible. It was April like 10 minutes ago.
It feels like, we didn't start this until April.
That's why I'm saying it was 10 minutes ago.
So yeah, two investigations at Boobies coming up, the 2nd and the 16th.
Yep. Tickets are still out there, of course, but they're getting limited.
Yep. I was chatting with Melissa a little bit ago, and they had some interesting things this past weekend.
Right. We had a special guest this weekend too. So
they did. Yeah. She didn't say anything about that, but they were talking about. Let's see, and they had a private investigation Friday night.
Right.
And they were down in the catacombs. I'm not sure which room. I think the vat room, but I could be wrong. It could just be the lower catacombs. They had a table slide on them that they caught on an audio recorder. They don't have it on video, but they have it on an audio recorder.
Okay. Fantastic.
And some definite reactions to that happening. The other thing this
was in real time then. This was experienced in real time.
Yes. Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we miss all the fun.
That's always interesting when that happens.
Well, sure.
She also said, they also had a lot of success on the Halo this weekend. Because I didn't tell you this. One guy was using the Halo. He heard something, threw off the headsets, and ran up the catacomb steps. So I don't know what he heard.
He just booked it.
He booked it out of there.
Anybody who runs up those steps wants to get out of there.
Exactly.
The steepest stairs in the world. Holy cow.
Yeah. And then the other thing was up in the ballroom, I'm assuming, because that's where we have the dolls, Lizzie.
Right. Yeah.
Lizzie's dress was pulled, which was awesome because everyone in the room saw it.
Oh, wow.
So things are starting to pick up in there again. So.
Yeah, it does seem like there's ebbs and flows of activity. And it's interesting that it's across multiple floors. There's a lot of space between the catacombs and the ballroom. Excuse me, the ballroom.
Yeah.
It's 60 feet or so difference. So, but obviously spirits can travel anywhere they want to go. Wow. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the second now. And we always would be anyway. But this is great to have some activity to follow up on.
Well, you'll have to keep me posted because I'm going to miss the second.
That's right.
But we'll definitely. I'll be there the 18th, but you keep me posted on what's happening. I'm just trying to pull up what we've got ticket wise.
Okay.
We have tickets available for both nights. We
Okay.
do have some sales, but we have tickets available for both nights.
I'm going to do a shameless plug here, because that's what we do. But
Mhm.
obviously tickets are for coming to an event. But you can, if you have somebody in your friends or family list, or somebody you like a lot, or whatever it is to you, that's interested in the paranormal, would love to come out and do an investigation. You can always do gift certificates for the investigations and come at a future event. Obviously this month, or later on, if you want to do it as a
Mhm.
Christmas present, or if you do Thanksgiving gifts. Who knows? Maybe some people do. Anywhere along the way, the festive season is upon us. So if you're in the
Mhm.
gift giving spirit, gift certificates are great. They can be used at an event somewhere later on.
Yep.
And that way, that person can come out and get to experience one of these gigs full time themselves. It is sometimes like TV that you see, but most times it is absolutely not. It's the reality of what happens. In the whole spectrum of the team is out of sight.
Mhm.
Um, there are going to be times of activity, times of lulls, but almost something happens every time we're there.
Yep.
And usually multiple things.
Yep.
So, well,
So on
hang out with us.
boobiesbrewery.com, you can go and get more information on getting gift certificates, or however you want to do it.
Yep.
Um, Definitely worth it. And even if this doesn't interest you, the food there is good. They've got dinner theater. They've got all sorts of. They've got something for everyone.
Yeah, they
They
really
have a
do.
bar. I mean,
Booze. Hey.
so definitely something for everybody. So check it out. Great gift ideas. So let's see. Move.
Even if you're into history, it's a National Historical Registered site.
Hmm.
The property is over, well, it's about 200 years old now, so it's got a lot of history inside of it as well. Plus, it's a working museum for the brewing industry, so there's a lot of cool stuff
Yep.
just to take a tour.
So then coming up with us, paranormal
Yeah.
lens, because that's why we're all here, right? Um, Next week, I am finally getting to Skinwalker Ranch. I know, Jamie, you're excited about this.
Yeah, you really am.
Um, Steve Dills, who's going to join us and present, is a researcher. He is the historian for the Ghost Finders. They're on the Paraflix. You can check it out there. But he is a researcher. He's done a lot of research on different things. Skinwalker Ranch is one that has always interested him. I know Amanda's excited. Jamie, you're excited. I'm
Oh yeah.
excited.
Is it next week yet? Is it next week yet?
So Steve will be joining us to talk about Skinwalker Ranch, and then we'll talk about some of what he does on, with Ghost Finders, and some personal things that he's involved in the paranormal field. So
Cool.
we got that.
Very cool.
December 5th is Krampus Eve, I believe, or Krampus Not, or whatever, however you say that. So Jamie will be doing Krampus that night. Then Jersey Devil is the next week. And then December 19th is the Staticom project with Ron and Lourdes.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool too.
Yep. And I think I have his name spelled wrong again. Or I fixed it, one or the other. I had it wrong somewhere. But I apologize if it is. So but yeah, exciting things coming up. I think we're going to be trying to get some more guests involved, right, Jamie? Trying to get
Yeah.
some people on
Yeah,
here.
the more people we can engage, of course, the more people that follow them, that come with us as well. So, we obviously, we have no idea how well perceived what we do is
Yeah.
in the world, So because obviously we have some great fans who follow us and work with us every week. But beyond that, we don't know how far and wide this goes. So we're hopeful that people like it and follow it. And, we're
Mm-hmm.
doing something good for somebody, learn something more that they knew, share something they had never thought about before. It just makes some good contact and not embarrass ourselves, I guess.
Well,
More than usual, anyway.
right.
So,
Well, we shouldn't. Apparently, we shouldn't be embarrassed. Last week we did ITC. Remember that?
Yep, I do.
And Ron knew we were doing that, and that he was coming on in a couple weeks. So he watched the show, and he had some really good positive feedback for us, Jamie. So that's always nice to hear.
It is.
But yeah,
it is. And you know what? No one's canceled us yet. So
Jamie, we're it.
Did I say the wrong thing?
Anyway, so well, that's what we've got coming up. We're excited. We're trying to grow our audience and figure out where we want to go and what we want to do next, I think. So
That's right. You think about it this way, Chad, if we were network television, we would have had a full season in 30 episodes. So more than a full season. So
yeah,
we've
because
done well.
most seasons are about 15 episodes. We'd had
Yeah.
two
Two
seasons.
seasons by now, right? Well, they used to be like 26, back in the day. So
Yeah.
you can always, when you're on Netflix trying to find something to watch, you can always tell how old the show is by how many episodes it has. Like,
Mhm.
how many of this? 22? Forget it.
Oh,
I'm done.
Thanks, Amanda.
Oh, thank you.
So,
The check's in the mail.
so here's our socials. I'm starting to work on the website again, Jamie. I know I've said that
Cool.
before, but I've got some ideas for the Jotniks website, so I'm going to start working on that. Get that up and more information than here it comes sort of page.
We're probably going to do this page. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay. Good.
So anyway, that's what we got coming up. We we appreciate everybody. I guess with Thanksgiving, we just want to say thank you to all our guests and the people who keep following us, and you know who you are. You're always there. We appreciate it. So thank you so much. So
yeah, thanks. We're saying thanks to you. And we hope you have a wonderful holiday season here with Thanksgiving first, but I'll be carrying through the Christmas season as well, and a Happy New Year if we don't catch you in the meantime. But we got 4 episodes to go before we get that far.
yeah.
So, more to come. More cool stuff to come.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till next year. Psst. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Is there something I don't know, Jamie?
Maybe.
So, all right. Well, any final words? Any final thoughts?
Happy Thanksgiving. Really, let's all sit back and enjoy our holiday with our friends and our families. Make it be time well spent. It matters. So, thanks, y'all. We really appreciate you.
All
Look
right.
forward to seeing you next week.
Jamie, I'm not sure what you're doing, but if you're traveling, safe travels.
Same to you.
And thank you. And enjoy the holiday. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We will see you next week.
Good night.